itself.
So are you saying that the pupil that has entered Year 7 here in 2010, are they going to have a poorer experience, a rounded experience, than those who have just left Gable Hall?
No, I hope not. I mean, I hope there's sufficient flexibility within the curriculum, and the government suggests that there is. They want to free up the curriculum, as they say, and I think the government's intention overall is to have less state intervention. That's what they're stating quite openly in I think all fields. So if it allows us flexibility within the curriculum to offer an academic and a vocational and perhaps the mid-path, because that I think is unclear at the moment. I hope we're not going to go into a situation whereby we have to choose on behalf of the parents, or we choose with the parents, whether the child pursues a purely academic curriculum or a purely technical curriculum, vocational curriculum, because that's almost like the old two-tier system. It's not based on selection, but it's almost based on the ability. And with comprehensive schools, I think that what most heads would want is to see flexibility within that. And so a child that is able to deal with a largely academic curriculum could still nevertheless have access to a technical dimension to it, and the other way round. So a child is not simply condemned to a totally technical curriculum and seen as a second-class citizen, but is also allowed access to a more academic pathway.
Where is the school with academy status?
At the moment, we've recorded an interest in academy status. My governors are seriously considering that, and a decision will be made imminently. And if we pursue academy status, it is because the school wishes clearly to make use of its resources that it has available for the purposes of the children that it serves. We don't want to disadvantage any other child or any other school in Thurrock. That isn't the point. As the government points out, and I'm hopeful that this is borne out, that it is not meant to advantage any school or disadvantage any school. It's merely a question that those services retained by the local authority and offered to schools are administered by the school itself. And in many respects, it goes back more in line with the GM days, where schools receive funding directly from the government as opposed through the local authority. And so this is a return to something we had previously.
If we go back to exam results, and someone seems to be obsessed by league tables, but Chafford 100 with the English and Maths now up to 79%, but also Gable Hall and the convent now see St Clair's now breathing down the neck. That must be a good thing.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that what's happening in Thurrock is that people are really concentrating on the important issues. The point is, can it be sustained? And I think there's always issues about that. I think Chafford 100 has done a brilliant job this year, the same as last year. I think it's working fantastically well, and Chris Tomlinson needs the congratulations on that. Both William Edwards and Gable Hall are still working extremely well. In Gable Hall's case, we went up by 11% this year. Very pleased with that. William Edwards by 10%, and we're looking to see increases on that in the coming years. One thing that worries me a little bit is that when the emphasis is on English and mathematics and other subject areas, there is a tendency almost to relegate other subjects, and English and mathematics, in my view, are incredibly important. And there is no reason why children that attend schools for 11 compulsory years shouldn't come away with very, very good grades in English and mathematics. And my own personal belief is that we should be aspiring to 100%. And I sincerely hope that Gable Hall achieves that, and indeed William Edwards achieves exactly the same in the coming years. I don't think it's impossible at all. I really genuinely believe that. We've got to get the processes right. But it shouldn't be at the expense of other subject areas. I think it should be complementary to those.
How would you describe, I can ask you this question, not that, I'll start this again. How would you describe the relationships in the 10 senior schools and the LEA?
I think there's always likely to be tensions between schools and local authorities. Always has been, historically it always has been. I personally have a certain sympathy towards local authorities, a genuine sympathy towards local authorities, and not just local educational side of that, but local authorities generally. And certainly from the educational perspective. I think sometimes the government, certainly previously when it took control of education, decided to raise standards from the centre. It realised it had limited life within that. It did an excellent job. I mean, despite one's feelings about national literacy hour, national numeracy hour in the primary sector, for example, it had a significant impact on standards within the country. And that's borne out by the PISA study, which is the international study of standards, which takes place every 2 to 3 years in the OECD countries, so the most advanced countries, including the Pacific Rim countries. And they test things like acquisition of one's own language, mastery of one's own language, mathematics in particular, which is an international language. Those are the two key players. And there was a time when England, because it's tested separately from Scotland and Wales, were languishing in the lower half, significantly in the lower half. Now, once Michael Barber came in and started introducing these changes, we rocketed up the league table. We're falling down slightly now, but it's still creditable. But when they found they'd run out of steam, and certainly they'd run out of steam in the primary sector, the maths scores were not increasing nationally by a great amount, etc. They then tended to push school improvement, school progress to the local authorities. The local authorities had never been financed sufficiently for it, they've not had the capacity, and they've not had the expertise. People that work in local authorities are extremely good, but those that work in are extremely good tend to be working in the schools anyway. And I think sometimes they'll be given the impossible task. The poison chalice, for example, is always SEN. The local authority has to pick up all the responsibility for special educational needs. It doesn't rest with central government, it doesn't rest with the school, it rests with the local authority, and that's a really difficult issue. So I think there's always been problems associated with the relationships between schools and the local authority. This one now, I think Thurrock is finding itself in an almost impossible position because of the cuts local authorities are suffering. And those cuts are savage compared to what's happening in schools. And I think we're likely to see a significant decline in what they can possibly offer. And so in many respects, if that is going to happen, and the government is intent on putting the school improvement budget directly into schools and all schools, then it follows that largely put the rest of it back into schools. And as an academy, we will have that money come back into schools. And really the local authority, I think, then should have a commissioning role.
Schools are delicate ecosystems, and William Edwards and Gable Hall will both be looking for new head teachers. How much of a challenge is that, and is that going to be?
It's a challenge nationally to recruit head teachers these days. We have a glut of head teachers, unfortunately, at my age, who are all going to be going in the next few years. And, excuse me, and Thurrock has particular recruitment problems. I think not simply because of the reputation of Thurrock, whatever that might be, but importantly 3 other things militate against recruitment generally within Thurrock. One is that it's in the southeast and it's a national pay scale. And so recruiting from outside the southeast is always going to be difficult if somebody has to move down from, say, northeast in particular, and to come and settle in the southeast. The cost implications are huge. We sit beautifully on the Thames, which might seem good, but not if you have to cross a QE2 bridge and Dartford Tunnel on a daily basis, and so it is difficult to recruit from the south. And of course, if you come out the Dartford Tunnel and turn west, within 3 or 4 miles you're in Barking and Dagenham. That has inner London allowance, and the difference is about £4,500, £5,000. And so recruitment generally is tough. Head teacher recruitment nationally is tough because of the numbers leaving. I think, however, on a very, very positive note,